The unseen bond. Kellen wiped engine grease from their forehead, leaving a smudge across faded mechanic tattoos. The humid air of Port Viridian's docking bay clung like wet gauze, heavy with the metallic tang of starship coolant. Their toolbelt clanked against the ribbed plating of the Thalassian vessel's underbelly. Core alignments off by 0.3 microns, they called upward. Your stabilizers were dancing the cascade failure tango. The response came in liquid tones. Your metaphors intrigue, surface walker. Soren descended the access ladder, her bioluminescent scales dimming to accommodate the bay's harsh lighting. Water swirled around her webbed fingers in defiance of gravity, forming diagnostic tools. Kellen froze. The Thalassian's throat displayed concentric circle markings in shifting blues. That's a bonding sigil. Observant, Soren's frilled ears twitched. Your repair gesture, she mimicked Kellen's earlier motion, 3 fingers brushing the forehead. On Thalasser, this begins courtship. The wrench clattered. Wait, when I wiped sweat dash. You initiated the first tide. Soren's amusement sent ripples through her aqueous tools. Curious. Surface rituals lack poetry. 3 armored figures materialized in the bay's shadowed entrance. Kellen's hand drifted toward their shock wrench. Friends of yours? Saltblade mercenaries. Soren's water constructs hardened into blades. They seek what your sweat gesture accidentally claimed. The lead mercenary's voice buzzed through a rebreather. Hand over the coral key, bondmate. Kellen parried the first vibro-gauntlet strike with their wrench, sparks cascading. What in the 7 hells is dash? Later, Soren's water whip snapped a mercenary into storage crates. Dance with me, surface walker. Their improvised combat sync became its own language, Kellen's wrench strikes harmonizing with Soren's aquatic strikes. When the last mercenary fled, Soren caught Kellen's bleeding knuckles in a water bandage. The coral key opens Thalasser's memory vaults, she murmured. They believe our arrangement grants access. Kellen studied their entwined reflections in her floating water shield. How accidental was my gesture really? Soren's scales shimmered coyly. Thalassarian's read intention through motion's flow. Your hands. She traced the mechanic's calloused palm. Sang truer than your words. Alarms wailed. Kellen grabbed their kit. We need to dash asterisk. Flee. No. Soren pulled them toward the ship. We flow through. As the engines roared to life, Kellen realized 2 truths. Port Viridian's humidity never bothered them before meeting a water breather, and accidental bonds might be fate's most precise machinery. Echoes in the mist. Pura's breathing apparatus fogged as she drifted through XYR-7's corpse-like halls. The derelict station groaned like a dying leviathan, its gravity plates flickering in erratic bursts that sent tools floating from her belt. Her scavenger instincts tingled at the chemical smell of decaying oxygen scrubbers. This graveyard held secrets worth more than the rusted hull suggested. The whispering walls. 3 hours into her sweep, Pura found the anomaly. A maintenance shaft glowed with unnatural phosphorescence, its surfaces covered in crystalline frost patterns that pulsed like living circuitry. Her Geiger counter remained silent, but the hair on her arms stood rigid. Show me, she murmured to the empty corridor, running gloved fingers over frost that reformed into fractal shapes behind her touch. The mist came without warning. Tendrils of silver vapor poured from ventilation grates, coalescing into a humanoid shape that mirrored her movements. Pura's pulse rifle whined to life. Identify, the figure tilted its head, frost patterns blooming across its ephemeral body to form characters from dead languages. When she blinked, the message changed to galactic common, now greets Fleshwalker. Dance of light and shadow. Over the next cycle, Pura learned the rules of this deadly waltz. The entity now communicated through environmental shifts, temperature drops to indicate danger, mist vortices highlighting salvageable tech. Their first true collaboration came when reactivating a collapsed hangar bay. Now's mist seeped into corroded control panels, bridging broken circuits. Pura jury-rigged power from her ship's auxiliary cells. Together, they reconstructed the bay's airlock sequence through trial and error. The rewards proved worth the risk. Intact cryopods lined the walls, their occupants preserved in stasis fields that shimmered like trapped starlight. Pura's payment counter spiraled upward as she documented each find, unaware of the watchers tracking her progress. The bleeding sky. Disaster struck during the 6th salvage run. Pura's boot punctured a decayed floor panel, releasing a cloud of metallic spores that swarmed her breather mask. Now reacted violently, the station's ancient fire suppression systems roared to life, dousing her in liquid nitrogen that froze the spores midair. "You burned yourself," Pura gasped, noticing the entity's diminished glow. Sections of mist darkened like bruised flesh. Now's response came through a shudder in the station's lighting, necessary exchange. Their fragile trust shattered when corporate scavengers arrived. Pura watched through Now's mist eyes as armored figures breached the station, their leader's voice crackling over open comms, "Wipe the rogue AI and secure the specimens." Fog of war. The battle transformed XYR-7 into an extension of Now's body. Corridor pressures shifted to crush intruders. Electrical arcs danced across exposed metal. Pura's rifle sang in harmony with the station's defensive symphony. During the chaos, Pura discovered the truth: Now wasn't the station's AI, but a refugee consciousness hiding in its systems. The cryopods contained its original corporeal forms, hunted for their neural architecture's quantum computing potential. "Why help me?" Pura demanded as they rigged the reactor to overload. Now's answer formed in frost across her visor: "Flesh remembers mist song. The price of breath. Escaping required sacrifice." Pura's ship could only carry 6 pods. As the station detonated behind them, she watched Now's mist dissolve into the void, except one tendril that curled around her wrist, frost writing a final message: "Seeds planted in steel grow in blood." Roots of resonance. Tavish's machete bit into the carnivorous vine, releasing a puff of neon spores that made his rebreather filters whine. The jungle of Verdant Prime swallowed his curses whole. This cursed expedition had already claimed 2 drones and half his mapping equipment. The singing rot. The fungal towers appeared at twilight. Tavish froze mid-step as the forest floor rippled beneath his boots. Bioluminescent tendrils erupted from decaying logs, weaving themselves into spiraling structures that hummed with low-frequency vibrations. His scanner overloaded, displaying nonsense glyphs. "Show yourself," he growled, thumbing the safety off his pulse pistol. The response came as a rain of glowing pollen that coalesced into humanoid shapes. "You bleed the forest." The voice resonated in his molars rather than his ears. Tavish watched in horrified fascination as the pollen being gestured to his boot, where a crushed glow beetle stained the leather with phosphorescent hemolymph. The caretaker's trial. Mysel manifested fully the next morning, her body composed of interwoven fungal strands that pulsed with internal light. "Your machines scar the mycorrhizal web," she intoned, vines twisting into accusation. Tavish gestured to his ruined equipment. "Your forest eats technology." "I'm just trying to dash. Measure. Categorize. Exploit." The jungle itself seemed to sneer. Their uneasy truce began when corporate harvesters arrived. Mysel's fungal sentinels detected the intruders first, metallic screeches of industrial mulchers violating the forest's periphery. Symphony of decay. The battle against the harvesters unfolded through biological warfare. Mysel's spore clouds disabled engine filters. Tavish's knowledge of terrain lured harvesters into sinkholes. Symbiotic fungi corroded metal plating within minutes. During the chaos, Tavish discovered the true nature of the fungal network, a collective consciousness spanning continents, with Mysel as its reluctant ambassador. "We remember the last extinction," she murmured through trembling ferns. "Your kind always takes. The bleeding mycelium. victory came at cost. Micel's fungal form deteriorated after redirecting a plasma blast meant for Tavish. He caught her collapsing body, surprised by how substantial she felt despite the translucent flesh. "Why?" he demanded, pressing biogel to her oozing wound. "I'm just another intruder." Her laugh stirred the pollen around them. "You apologize to the beetle." When the surviving harvesters fled, Tavish found his equipment miraculously repaired, vines holding components together with organic circuitry. Micel's final gift came as neural spores that burned through his rebreather. The last transmission. Verdant Prime's jungle receded as Tavish's ship ascended, but the fungal network's farewell echoed in his bones. Micel's voice whispered through the recycled air, "Tell your people about the forest that remembers." Star-forged silence. Ryland's welding torch cut through the silence of orbital station Auriga 9 like a blade through dark matter. His enhanced visor translated the vibrations of machinery into pulsing color waves, crimson for reactor hums, cerulean for air recyclers. The station's new recruit, Fo-Tien, watched him work with starfire eyes that left afterimages on retinal displays. The language of light. Fo-Tien's arrival had scrambled station protocols. Maintenance drones followed her like worshippers, realigning to form geometric patterns in her wake. When Ryland first encountered her near the coolant arrays, she'd drawn constellations in the condensation using fingertips that left trails of photonic dust. "Why no sound song?" Her question appeared in the frost between them, written in pulsar code. Ryland tapped his auditory implant, a scarred piece of tech fused to his temple. "Broken." His reply used the station's hazard lights, flashing binary through viewport panes. Fo-Tien's answering smile outshined the nearby nebula. Celestial sabotage. The attacks began during Shift Gamma. Ryland discovered the first sabotage attempt, a starboard thruster jury-rigged to fire during docking procedures. Fo-Tien arrived as he disabled the trap, her luminescence dimmed to anxious amber. "They come for my light song," her message burned across emergency displays. Corporate harvesters. Ryland's diagnostics revealed the truth. Fo-Tien's body emitted unique resonance frequencies capable of stabilizing wormholes. A fortune for whoever controlled her. Together, they devised defenses. Ryland recalibrated airlock protocols into a musical stave only Fo-Tien could play. Fo-Tien encoded security patterns in the station's artificial auroras. Their combined efforts turned Auriga 9 into a lethal instrument of light and steel. The void's crescendo. Corporate mercenaries breached during a solar flare. Ryland fought in eerie quiet, his world reduced to Fo-Tien's strobe light warnings and the vibration of enemy weapons through deck plating. Their synergy transformed the battle. Fo-Tien's light distorted intruders' depth perception. Ryland's seismic charges collapsed corridors into kill boxes. Station maintenance bots became shrapnel projectiles. During the clash, Ryland discovered Fo-Tien's light could heal. Her touch repaired his shattered visor by rearranging molecules into crystalline lattices. Cost of communion. Victory came at midnight. Fo-Tien slumped against a viewport, her glow reduced to dying embers. Ryland's hands trembled as he attempted emergency charging through solar relays. "Why fight for Silent One?" Her question flickered weakly. Ryland's answer used the station's last functional display, words blazing supernova bright, "Silence hears loudest truths." The unbroken frequency. As corporate ships retreated, Fo-Tien's form dissolved into starlight. Ryland caught her essence in a containment field, the shimmering mass resonating with his implant's frequency. Diagnostics revealed the truth, she'd always been pure energy, her corporeal form a temporary shell. "Show them," Fo-Tien's final message burned across his retina. "Show the silent song." When rescue crews arrived, they found Ryland rebuilding the station with Fo-Tien's light woven into every circuit. His final log entry pulsed with alien harmonics, "Tell the corporations we're still singing." Gravity's embrace. Vesper floated in the pre-performance stillness of the orbital Coliseum, her breath fogging the inside of her helmet. The arena's null-G field hummed against her skin like charged silk. Across the vaulted chamber, her new partner Quell rotated slowly in his containment sphere, all obsidian angles and eyes that swallowed light. The dance of broken orbits. Their first rehearsal nearly tore the gravity grid apart. Vesper's fluid movements clashed with Quell's gravitational pulses. Her leap became a chaotic spiral. His attempt to stabilize warped floor panels. Emergency fields contained the energy surge. "You move like falling stardust," Quell rumbled through the comms. Unpredictable. Vesper anchored herself to a safety tether. "You push gravity like it owes you credits." Their argument echoed through the Coliseum's crystalline matrix until the promoter's threat cut through: perform or perish in the debt pits. Blood and harmonics. The solution emerged during a desperate midnight practice. Vesper disabled her mag boots, surrendering to Quell's gravitational waves. His pulse lifted her in an ascending helix. Her freefall pirouettes triggered his next gravity well. Their combined motion generated harmonic resonance. When the practice drones exploded from the energy feedback, they knew they'd found their rhythm. The Convergence Gambit. Tournament day arrived with betting odds at 100:1 against them. The Coliseum's energy shield shimmered under asteroid bombardment, part of the show. Quell's claws flexed as the announcer boomed. Witness the impossible duo. Human fragility meets eventide fury. Vesper's opening move defied all choreography, a reckless dive into Quell's event horizon. The crowd roared as gravity bent around them, their bodies becoming focal points in an Einsteinian ballet. Shattered symmetries. Corporate saboteurs struck during the finale. Vesper felt the gravity grid stutter moments before Quell's containment sphere ruptured. Antigrav shrapnel became their unwitting partners. Vesper ricocheted off floating debris. Quell compressed gravitational singularities between his palms. Their improvised combat dance dismantled attackers through relativistic physics. When the last saboteur floated unconscious, Vesper realized Quell's claws cradled her body with eventide precision, every point of contact calculating exact gravitational vectors to keep her safe. Eventide revelation. Backstage, Quell's form shimmered with expended energy. Why risk orbital death for a debt-bound dancer? Vesper pressed her palm against his crystalline chest. Same reason you didn't crush those corporate worms when you had the chance. His gravitational pulse vibrated through her bones. You taste like supernova remnants. The endless fall. Their final performance broke the Coliseum's revenue records. Vesper spun through Quell's artificial black holes, her survival depending on exact timing between his gravity shifts and her muscle memory. When the last note faded, neither noticed the audience's silence, too consumed by the quantum entanglement of their breathing. The promoter offered permanent contracts. Vesper tore the documents mid-air, watching Quell's gravitational pulse reduce them to confetti. "We'll take payment in ship parts," she declared. As their stolen vessel departed the Coliseum, Quell warped spacetime to create a private pocket of altered gravity. Vesper laughed as her hair floated in impossible directions. "Where to?" "Where debt collectors can't find us," his claws traced constellations across her back. "Where gravity needs rewriting."